Mead, or honey wine, has been made for thousands of years. A mead made with fruit is called a melomel. A mead made with tamarind is called nothing. No one does this. We're kind of going off book with this one. Before we start brewing, we need to disinfect our equipment. I'm sanitizing everything with a solution of potassium metabisulfate to kill off any wild yeast or bacteria that might colonize and contaminate our brew. With all our equipment sanitized, it's time to prepare the key ingredient. Tamarind. Before we can add the tamarind to the mead, we first need to remove the seed pod, seeds, and veins from that sweet, sweet pulp. For this mead, we're using the sweet variety you commonly see in chutneys in Indian cuisine, rather than the sour kinds commonly used as the base for a lot of soups in Southeast Asian cuisine. At some point, I'd like to try making a mead with sour tamarind, but for this first batch, I don't want to risk the higher acidity interfering with fermentation, so we're just sticking with the sweet stuff.
And here is the final result. And I admit, it's not the most appetizing looking substance, but it is, I assure you, very, very good. Yeah, that's stuff. Definitely the sweet tamarind.
The de-seeded tamarind pulp is then added to our disinfected 1-gallon carboy. It's now time to start adding our dry ingredients. For our yeast, we're using a Red Star Premier Blanc, a good all-purpose white wine yeast with good tolerance to alcohol. Our final dry ingredient is Fermax yeast nutrient. The recommended dose for a 1-gallon batch is 1 to 1.5 teaspoons. We're only going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon because there should already be plenty of nutrients present from the tamarind pulp. We're adding 1/4 teaspoon now, another 1/4 teaspoon in 2 days, and another 1/4 teaspoon in 2 days after that, for maximum absorption by the yeast.
Now for the must, I'm going to combine 4.5 cups of local orange blossom honey with however much water it takes for me to get up to a gallon. I'm using distilled water. I'm going to mix the ingredients under a low heat. Now this is important. I'm not going to cook it so much that I'm pasteurizing it. I just want it hot enough that it starts to dissolve. And now that we've got the must all nice and mixed, we're just going to pour it in with the other ingredients. excess space, we can just top off with a little bit more water, bring it up to the full gallon. And that is all there really is to it. So, update. It's been 2 days, and you can see fermentation is going strong. The airlock is popping off every few seconds, so the yeast is definitely happy. I've been aerating it for the past 2 days by occasionally opening up the airlock, letting some air get in, and then shaking it up. Anyway, it's time to add some yeast nutrient again, because as a wise man once said, life needs things to live. I do want to draw attention to one thing that happened during the first day, something I probably could have and should have been aware of, and that is that the tamarind formed a bit of a film at the top during the first few hours. It was actually bubbling up so intensely that it got up through the airlock and was spilling everywhere. That's happened with a few of my different ferments using berries and whatnot, but I've never seen it quite so violent. So I guess it's just a natural property of the tamarind. Anyway, that is all there is to this guy for now. I'm gonna put it away in a dark place so it can ferment. 2 days I'll add another 1/4 teaspoon of yeast nutrient, and then we'll see how it turns out in 2 weeks.
2 weeks later, fermentation has started to slow down, and a thick layer of sediment has collected at the bottom of the vessel. The mead is racked into a different container, so the fermentation vessel can be cleaned out so that we can continue fermenting the mead for another week off of the lees. One week later, it's time to clarify the mead to pull out any remaining cloudiness that would otherwise settle out as sediment after bottling. 1 teaspoon of bentonite clay is mixed with a 1/4 cup of hot water to create a sludge, which is then stirred into the mead. Over the next few hours, the clay will bind to impurities in the mead and will fall to the bottom, ready for another racking. So, as you can see, it's been 24 hours and we have managed to pull out a decent amount of sediment. It's formed about a 1/2 inch layer down there at the bottom. Still not completely clear. There's probably more that could be pulled out with bentonite, but I'm not going to risk it because you don't want to add too much. It might impact the flavor. So this is a good stopping point, and any other sediment that falls out in the bottle falls out in the bottle. Just something you deal with home brewing. So this is now done. All that's left is the taste test. That is good. I like that. Definitely pretty sweet. I think I would like to try using the sour tamarind in the future. I think the sourness would add a little bit of a tartness and more distinct flavor that would balance out the sweetness, but that is good. I think that is a success. Like any good mead, it should be aged a little bit because the flavor is still a little bit rough, so we'll see how it does in a few months, but yeah, that's a good one. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Or don't, I am not a beggar.